Okay, good. So Daf Yomi for the month continues to be sponsored by the Durbach, Abudi, and Mandel families in honor of the engagement of Shul Harris to Meir Mandel. May they build a Bayis Neman B'Yisrael filled with Torah, Simcha, and Bracha. And we are on 2 lines up from where the lines get wider. Haba al Hazocher. So just to quickly review this piece, right? I need this magnet. Okay. To review this piece in this chart, we had a disagreement between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael as to where the source for one who is the shochev and one who is the nishkav in a circumstance of mishkav zachar, of homosexual relations, and what is the punishment? What is the source for the punishment for somebody who is shochev and somebody who's the nishkav? One is the shochev is the one who's committing the act. One is the nishkav is the one who's receiving the act. Whether this, as in regards to having relations with an animal. So Rabbi Akiva, the key to Rabbi Akiva's point is his consistency is lo sishkav, lo sishkav. Both of these can be read. One can be read lo sishkav. It can be read lo sishachev to imply that this one pasuk tells me both one who is the shochev and one who is the nishkav has an avera. Also, he does the same thing when it comes to the animals. By the animals, it says lo sitein shichavtecha and lo sitein shechivasecha. So therefore, he uses the same. So there's one pasuk that tells me both the shochev and nishkav. One pasuk that tells me the shochev and the nishkav by the animal. Okay. Then, according to Rabbi Yishmael says lo sishkav, but he has a different pasuk lo yia kadesh for the one who is the nishkav, and then he has a pasuk. He uses the same pasuk as Rabbi Akiva for the shochev by the animal, but lo yia kadesh is the same pasuk. He says that pasuk applies to both the one who is the nishkav in the case of mishkav zachar and the animal. So this is the same pasuk. So he has a pasuk here, a separate pasuk here, but this pasuk is the same for those two. Now, what's the practical ramification? What's the practical difference between the two opinions? That's what we're going to see now. Abala zachar behavior love zachar. Let's say somebody commits 2 averos without anybody telling him in between that what you're doing is wrong. So if he does an avera, the halacha is that if somebody does an avera and he does the same avera many times, never realizing that it's prohibited. For example, right? Somebody doesn't realize that he is not allowed to wear shatnez, right? So he gets up and he puts on his shatnez coat over and over and over and over and over again. One time he comes to shul and somebody says, "Oh, I didn't know you could wear that brand. I thought it was shatnez." And he takes a look and he realizes, "Oh, shatnez is a thing. I can't wear it anymore." So he is only liable for one korban for all the times he wore shatnez because he's done the one avera under what we call helam achas. One time he forgot. He forgot one time, even though he did the avera many, many times, he only forgot once. He's only going to bring one korban. Now, he's told, he goes home, and he takes his coat, and he puts it on, and he walks home, and he goes, "Oh no, I forgot again." Now, he's going to be chayav a second korban chatos. Okay? Now, what happens if a person is, he decides that he's going to both wear something that's shatnez, and he's also going to do another. He's going to carry on Shabbos. Those are 2 separate averos. So, despite the fact that he's a Baal Tshuva and he doesn't know anything yet, and he then finds out as he goes to the rabbi's class, and he's told that he's not allowed to carry, he's not allowed to wear shatnez. So, even though it's one helam, one time that he forgot, he didn't know up until that point. It's 2 separate averos. So, therefore, since he did 2 separate averos, he has to bring 2 separate korbanos.
If he did the third one, did he get punished, or he just have to send a korban?
So every time it's a korban, right? Because each of these times, this is b'shogeg. This is all going to be a circumstance b'shogeg. So this person, he's a baal zachar ve'evi love zachar. This person does not realize that homosexuality is prohibited, right? And he has a relationship both where he is on the receiving end or on the giving end of this mishkav zachar. So Amar Rabbi Yavo says, L'diver Rabbi Yishmael, according to Rabbi Yishmael, chayiv shtayim, you're going to be violating 2 different averos, right? Because chada milo sishkav v'chada milo yeh kadesh, 2 different psukim. So therefore, since the shochev and the nishkav are 2 different averos, even though he only didn't know about it one time, he's going to bring 2 korbanos. Okay? L'diver Rabbi Akiva, but according to Rabbi Akiva, eno chayiv ela achas. He's only going to bring 1 korban. Why? Because this and this, shochev and nishkav, is the same avera. Because he learns it from the same pasuk. So it's the same avera. So even though you've done this avera as the shochev and as the nishkav, it's still the same avera. Because he says, lo sishkav, lo sishachev, Chadahi. It's all the one Avera.
I didn't do that b'shoyeg.
You didn't know that it was Aser,
Oh, okay.
right? Nobody told you, right?
Makes sense.
Habala behema. I was wondering this, and I was thinking, how am I going to come with that? Yeah, nobody told you. Habala behema. Somebody has relations with an animal. Okay, again, this is a shogeg circumstance, right? Nobody told him it was Aser. He didn't know. Vehevi behema olav, and he also had relations as the nishkav with the animal. Sabar Rabbi Yavo. So Rabbi Yavo says again, L'div Rabbi Shmuel Chayiv Shtayim. According to Rabbi Shmuel, two different averos. Lo sitein shechavtecha and lo yia kadesh. So chada milo sitein shechavtecha, chada lo yia kadesh. L'div Rabbi Akiva. According to Rabbi Akiva, enu chayiv ela achas. Rabbi Akiva says it's the same avera. Shechavtecha ushchiva secha. Same pasuk. So therefore, it's the same avera. Chadahi. It's one avera. Okay. Abaye Amar. Abaye says no. He says, I actually will tell you that afilu l'divrei Rabbi Yishmael nami inu chayiv ela achas. That even according to Rabbi Abaye will say that even according to Rabbi Yishmael, it's only one avera. Why? Dechi ksiv lo yeh kadesh begavrei ksiv. That when it says lo yeh kadesh, so that is talking about with human beings. That's the relations. It's only talking about this avera here with a mishkav zachar. But this, he says, this is it's going to be. He's going to say it comes from a different source. This source of Leah Kadesh only applies to this, doesn't apply here. So the question is, Gazi, El Rabbi Yishmael, Ashara Linishkav Minole. So according to Rabbi Yishmael, where does the prohibition of being the nishkav for a behema come from? Where's the source? Nafkale mikol shochev in behema mos yumas. Because the pasuk says, right, by the onesh, the punishment, says anybody who lies with an animal will surely die. Im eino inyan l'shochev. So we already have that pasuk. We already know that it is prohibited to lie with an animal. Why do we have that pasuk as extra? So we have this rule of im eino inyan that we've seen before, which is that when the Torah repeats something, never is it extra. So the only reason why it's being repeated is if it doesn't apply in that place where it's written, we have to apply that to another circumstance. So if it doesn't apply in the place where the punishment goes, Tneu inyan lenishkav, it is the prohibition in the Torah for being the nishkav. So says Abaye, this pasuk is a hekish to shochev. Just like somebody who's a shochev is prohibited, so too the nishkav is also prohibited. So the Torah is telling us that the prohibition to be the nishkav is prohibited through the language of a shochev, right? Saying that's the punishment. Ma shochev onash vehiz here, so it's a hekish. Just like the one who is the shochev, right? This guy. So there's a prohibition, and there is a punishment. Right? Pashik says, Asher yitain shechav tocho bebehema, you get the punishment. Av nishkav onesh v'his here. So too, the nishkav also has that. Now, if that's the case, according to the way Abaye is learning it, what is the source pasuk for the prohibition? The source pasuk for the prohibition is the same thing as lo sitain shechav tocho, because he says that just as the shochev has a prohibition, so too the nishkav has the prohibition. But it really is the same pasuk. So therefore says Abaye, he says, I don't agree with what Rabbi Yavo says. Rabbi Yavo says that according to Rabbi Yishmael, there's two different averos. Abaye says, no, Rabbi Yishmael's learning that this is still the same pasuk. It's one avera. So one who has relation with an animal, both as the shochev and as the nishkav, it's only one avera, and you only bring one korban chatas.
Okay, according to all of them though, I apologize, I missed this. Animal and man, they're considered two different averas?
That's correct.
So
that's for sure. Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Either the shochev or the nishkav.
Correct.
Okay, fine. Wait, could that be four?
Well, I take that back, because according to Rabbi Yishmael, according to Rabbi Abo, right, being the nishkav of mishkav zachar and being the nishkav of a behema is the same avera.
Right.
Lo yeh kadesh.
And the shochev of each too.
The shochev of each is different. The shochev is different. Even he says even the shochev is different, but the nishkav is the same, right?
Wow.
Because he says that the word kadesh, right, the word kadesh to be somebody who is something that to do something one needs to be separated from, right, applies to being on the nishkav end of any prohibited relationship.
Okay, so because of that pasuk, it's ties. Okay, very interesting.
Correct.
You get sodomizer and sodomized.
Yes, that's a good. I'm using the word shochev and nishkav, right? Shochev is the sodomizer, and the nishkav is the sodomizee. sodomized, one who's being sodomized. Okay, good. Now, here's here the nishkav. Here's here nirva lezachar v'hanirva lebehema. Okay, so therefore now we've got where did I go? A second, I lost my place. Nishka v'afki rachmana lenishka b'lashon shochev ma'shochev anash v'hizir av nishka v'anash v'hizir hanirva lezachar v'hanirva. Okay, next case. Hanirva lezachar v'hanirva lebehema. One who is this is the point that we were trying to make just a second ago. One who is the nirva, he is the one who is on the receiving end of a mishkav zachar relationship, and one who is on the receiving end of a mishkav behema relationship. Both behel machas. He didn't realize any of that was prohibited. Amar Rabbi Yavo says, L'divrei Rabbi Akiva, according to Rabbi Akiva, chayv shtayim, that's 2 averos.
Right, but according to Rav
Right.
Rabbi Shmuel.
Right. Chadami lo tishkav, one is lo tishkav, v'chadami lo sitain shechavtecha. One is from lo tishkav, one from lo sitain shechavtecha. L'divrei Rabbi Yishmael, right, now you're on it. According to Rabbi Yishmael, no, eino chayv el achas. It's only one, because idi v'idi lo yeh kadesh. Both of them come from the pasuk, lo yeh kadesh. Perfect. Now Abaye, right? Abaye disagrees, right? Abaye Amar afilu de Rabbi Yishmael nami chayev shtayim. It's all still going to be 2 because he says it doesn't come from Kadesh, right? He says dechsiv kol shochevim behema mos yumas. He says it comes from the pasuk, the hekesh that we had. Kol shochevim behema, you shall surely die.
But Abaye and Yishmael both agree that shochev and nishkav are 2 different averas, whereas Rabbi Akiva says it's one. Shochev and nishkav, like for an
no, that's the point, right? According to Rabbi Akiva, he says the nishkav. Sorry, you're right.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Right.
They both agree. What you just said is right. According to Rabbi Yishmael, right? Both the shochev and the nishkav are always 2 different things.
Right. Okay.
Right?
Interesting.
So, im'eno inyan l'shochev t'nilin l'nishkav, as we said, that we are going to, if it doesn't apply to the shochev, so we're going to apply it to the nishkav, afki rachmana l'nishkav, b'lashon shochev. We're going to say that the prohibition to be the nishkav with a behema is going to come from the same language as the shochev. And to tell us, ma shochev onash v'his here, just like the shochev has a punishment and he has a prohibition, af nishkav, so to the nishkav is onash v'his here, he has a punishment and he also there's a prohibition. Now, here's where it gets different, right? Aval, however, haba'al hazachar v'hevi zachar alav. Let's say somebody has relations with a zachar and has both as the shochev and the nishkav, and haba'al behema v'hevi behema alav, and he also has relations with the animal, and the animal has relations with him.
I was just thinking about how many
is it going to be?
Right,
Now, Bein le Rabbi Yovo, Bein le Abaye, whether you hold, like, now we're looking at Rabbi Yishmael first, doesn't matter whether you're Rabbi Yovo or Abaye, because it's going to come out to 3.
Right.
Le Rabbi Yishmael, chayiv shalosh, according to Rabbi Yishmael, you're going to get 3. It's just going to be a different 3, but it's going to be 3.
Right.
Le Rabbi Akiva, chayiv shtayim, it's only going to be 2.
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Very good. You're on that one. It's very good. Tana Rabbanan.
But that's because there's no one who holds that, like, it would be 4. You would think there would be somebody who would hold.
Correct. Nobody holds 4?
Nobody holds 4.
Can't hold 4. Right. No 4. Okay, so good. Tana Rabbanan. Our rabbis learned. Zachor, lo asuk. So it says, the pasuk says that that mishkav is mishkav zachor, right? Lo asuk bokaton kigadol. So there's a distinction between a minor and an adult. Well, not an adult, but we say a katan and a gadol, as we say. But what is a katan and what's a gadol? So when we translated originally, we said a minor and an adult, but that's not exactly accurate, as we're going to see. Right? Lo asu bo katan kigadol. Behema asu bo katana kigadola. So by a person, when it comes to a human being, the shochev, right, the one who is doing the act, so a katan is not the same as a gadol. Now we're going to explain what that means. Katan can't be the same cause at a certain age, a katan's relations don't count. And for boys, the tradition is that it's 9 years old. 9 years old and older, so they're old enough to have relations, but younger than that, not so. Okay? So therefore, it's not the same. However, right, by a animal, We don't make any such distinction. Doesn't matter the animal, right? Normally we have a concept that an animal of a certain age can't be brought as a korban yet. It has to be at least 7 days old. We don't make any distinctions by an animal. With an animal, it's prohibited regardless.
Right.
So my lo asu bo katan ked gadol. What does that mean? What's this explanation of this age where a katan and a gadol are not the same? Amar Rav says lo asu bias pachos mi ben teisha shanim ke ben teisha shanim. They said that a person who is below 9 years old is not the same as the relations as a person who is above 9 years old. Ushmuel Amar, and Shmuel disagrees. Shmuel says lo asu bias pachos mi ben sholosh ke ben sholosh shanim. Right now, the relations with the child is like somebody who's 3 years old. Okay, so now what's going on? Now remember that we said that the shochev has to be an adult, right? Obviously, the shochev has to be an adult because where's the punishment, right? So the shochev is an adult. We're talking about the nishkav being a minor. The minor's not being punished, right? Because he's not old enough.
The minor than the adult gets the punishment.
No, the adult never gets a punishment, right? We would say the father is responsible, right? But he doesn't get a punishment.
Rabbi holds la'asa bia pachos min ben teisha, so under 9. Shanim, okay, fine. And,
right.
And Rabbi Shmuel owns. Okay, fine.
So we're pointing out that even if the shochev is an adult, if the nishkav is below a certain age, it's not considered the affair of mishkav zachar. So according to one opinion, the age is 9. According to the other opinion, the age is 3. Now why? What is the argument based on? Rav Sambar called the isay b'shochev isay b'nishkav. Rav says you have to have a child who is subject to being able to perform relations. Otherwise, there's no such thing as being a nishkav. So you have to, in order to be a nishkav, you have to have the ability to be a shochev. And the age at which a child can be a shochev is 9.
Right.
Therefore, if he's not 9 and he can't be a shochev, he's not going to be able to be a nishkav either.
Wait, are we talking about if someone, a 9-year-old?
No.
We're talking about the 9-year-old.
An adult,
right?
Who assaults a 9-year-old, right?
So he wouldn't be chayiv because the kid would be too young.
Correct. If he's under 9, correct. If the kid is too young, then it's like he's not chayiv for that avera. He could be chayiv for other averos, but
so he wouldn't be chayiv misa.
Would not be chayiv misa. Correct.
But isn't it considered worse that it's like a younger? It's weird.
It's not bia. Yes.
No, I hear the definition.
It's bad avera, but it's not bia.
I hear what you're saying.
Yes.
It's a little bit.
It's severe. Yeah, it is.
Right. So therefore, he says. So this is according to Rav says kol delesi b'shochev leisi b'nishkav. If you can't be a shochev, you can't be a nishkav. So therefore, that's why it's not considered bia. So therefore, it's not going to be part of the prohibition. Ushmuel Savar, Shmuel disagrees. He says mishkavei isha ksiv. It says that the prohibition is that you cannot lie with a man like one lies with a woman. So therefore, the normal age for a woman, for a girl to be considered bia is 3. And so therefore, in this circumstance, since the nishkav is being treated like the girl, so therefore the age is 3 for the boy. Okay? That's the difference. So Tanya Kavase de Rav. We have a brisa that supports what Rav says. Zocher ben teisha shanim v'yom echad. If somebody who is a child of 9 years old and one day habal habehema has relations with an animal, bein kedarka bein shelo kedarka, whether that is according to sodomizing the animal or according to the normal way, va'isha hamevias a behema aleha, or a woman who causes the animal to have relations with her, bein kedarka bein shelo kedarka, chayev, they're liable. Okay, so therefore, this is the circumstance. The first case is Zocher ben teisha shanim. If the 9-year-old is the nishkav, so then we are going to say that is a violation of the prohibition, right? So that's Rav's statement, because not 3, that would be Shmuel's statement, and then the statement about the animal as well as we had stated in our Mishnah.
So what does it mean, bein kedarku and bein shaloi kedarka? Does that mean the 9-year-old?
That's talking about the woman.
A minor, whether it's
no, that's a woman.
Oh, a woman.
Kedarka means vaginally, and shelo kedarka is anally.
Oh, okay, fine.
right? So therefore, those two different types of relations are both considered relations when it comes to prohibitions with regard to women.
Right.
If a woman cannot have relations with a person, it does not matter whether the relations are kedarka or shelo kedarka. Either way, that's a prohibition d'oraisa of violating of a prohibited relationship. Right? If a person cannot have relations with his sister or whatever, those two types of relations are both prohibited. If a woman can't have relations with an animal, both of those types of relations are prohibited.
Right.
Okay?
I understand.
Dorosh Rav and that's what this is saying. Dorosh Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda. So Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda says, well, Be'isha shnei mishkevos. He says, with a woman, I can understand that there's two types of relations. There's the normal, regular way of procreation, and then there's another way, and I can understand the distinction between the two. However, behema mishkav echad. But when it comes to an animal, there's never a normal way to have relations with an animal. So therefore, every way that you have a relation with an animal is abnormal. Therefore, why are you making a distinction between those two things?
Right.
Don't make a distinction. Maskiflo Rav Papa. Rav Papa said back to him, Adarabba, no, it's the other way around. Isha de urchahi amishkav michayev. Amedoi machrina lo mechayev. No, then I would look at it logically the other way. Look, when it comes to a woman, there is a right way to have relations that procreates and a way that isn't. Therefore, I would have thought that the right way of procreation is the thing that's prohibited in the Torah, and the other is not. Right? So because there exists a kedarka way, therefore there's a lo kedarka that doesn't count. Makes sense to make a distinction between the two. But behema delav urchahi, but an animal which even the regular relations is not regular, then I would say both of those are separate prohibitions. L'chayv Allah kol nekav v'nekav. Whatever type of way you're having relations with an animal is going to be prohibited. So therefore, that's how he looks at it. Tanya.
Wait, because we just said before whether it's a shoichev or mishkav. Now we're saying that.
Well, now we're adding the extra
saying
dimension.
that
This is
depending which
kedarka or shelo kedarka.
Kedarka v'lo kedarka.
Correct. And now we're saying that kedarka v'lo kedarka. This shochev and nishkav, it doesn't matter whether
Right,
it's
that's on
kedarka or
top
shelo
of it.
kedarka. That's on top of it. Okay. Tanya. We learned in a brisa. Zochor bein teisha shanim v'yom echad. Right, so we have when it comes to the 9-year-old by a nishkav. So the 9-year-old is the age. Habal behema, somebody a man who has relations with an animal, bein kedarka, bein shelo kedarka, whether it's kedarka or lo kedarka. Va'isha mevias a behema alel, or a woman who has the animal have relations with her, bein kedarka, bein shelo kedarka, is chayiv. Right, so either way. Okay. Amar le Ravina l'Rava. Ravina says to Rava, Hama'are bezochor mahu. What is the moment of the Avera of Mishkav Zachar? There's two points during relations that are potentially the moment at which you're violating the prohibition. We say the haschalas bia, the initial insertion, or the completion of the act. So Ma'ara bezocher, what is the case if all he does is the initial beginning part of the act? Is that the prohibition, or does he have to complete the full relations? So Hama'ara bezocher, of course, the answer is that as soon as he participates in the Avera at the beginning of the Avera, that is the prohibition. Why? Because the pasuk says Mishkeve Isha Ksivbe, right? It says by the zocher, the prohibition is to have relations like a woman. So therefore, that's clearly the case. Ella, the question that he meant to ask was Hama'ara bebehemamahu. What would be the case by an animal? So therefore, because it doesn't say by the animal, Mishkeve Isha. So therefore, we don't know what relations means when it comes to an animal, the beginning or the end. So Amar Lei, so he said back to him, we have an extra pasuk where im eno inyan lehara tiksiva gabe achos avi v'achos imo. Look, we have a pasuk that talks about the initial part of relations being prohibited when it comes to talking about a pasuk about a sister, your father's sister. And it's unnecessary because the pasuk earlier has already told us that the beginning of relations is prohibited by those people. Why? Because we know that all of those prohibitions, because they're all kares prohibitions, are compared to a nida. And just as a woman who's a nida, the prohibition of having relations with a nida is the initial beginning of relations with a nida. It's not the completion. So too, all of those other prohibited relationships are also the initial outset of the relations. And therefore, why do I have the extra pasuk to tell me also that, but it comes to sister and all those relationships, that also the initial act of bia is prohibited? Teneu inyan leha'ara debehema. We're going to apply that pasuk to the case of having relations with animals. And we're going to say that just as with human beings, the initial part of relations is the prohibition, so too with an animal, the initial part of the relations is the prohibition. Okay, so Michti, let's take a look at that. Behema mechayve misos based in. So an animal, right? One who has relations with an animal, we said the prohibition is skila, right? Once a misos based in. So lamali based in he. Lama li dikosev lahara dide gabe chayvi krisos. So why is it that the pasuk that we're going to be learning, the prohibition of this act, is the pasuk that relates to sisters and wife sisters, father sister, when that pasuk is dealing with prohibitions that are kares prohibitions, right? It doesn't make sense. Why would the Torah pick that pasuk to put it in when the type of penalty, the punishment for those two crimes are different? So the answer is lichteve gabe. So the question continues, lichteve gabe chayve misos based in. So why don't we talk about when it comes to other types of death sentences where we had relations like somebody who commits adultery, right? Where the punishment is skila, or a punishment by based in. Let's write the extra time over there, and then I would know it by animals. V'ligmar chayve misos based in, me chayve misos based in. That way, we can at least learn prohibitions that are punishable by a court from other prohibitions that are punishable by a court. So the answer is, Hoil v'kule kro l'drasha hu da'asi ksivanami milsa d'drasha. The answer is that whole pasuk that we were talking about with the sister and the father's sister, that whole pasuk is extra. In Yevamos, we go through every word of that pasuk and realize there isn't a single word in that pasuk that gives us a new prohibition that we haven't already seen someplace else. Therefore, that whole pasuk, every word in that pasuk, is applied as an eno inyan, and we apply it to teach me some new law. Therefore, since I've got a whole pasuk that is completely for a drush, this also got put into that same pasuk as a drush because it was consistent. All of the things in this pasuk are all a drasha, and so therefore it even though it doesn't fit in the sense that it's talking about a prohibition which relates to misas based in rather than kares, it fits in the sense that every other word in this pasuk is also extra and applied to different cases. Okay. Okay, now, Rav Achtavoy Bar Ami asked Rav Sheshes the following question. What if somebody has Mishkav Zachar with himself? Right? What if he does to himself? Good question. I love that face. Amar Lay.
Are we talking about? Okay, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's exactly right. Yes.
No, it's possible.
Right? So, okay, good. So he says, Amar Le Kavaston. He says, you're making me crazy with impossible questions. What kind of question is that? All right. So Amar Ravashi. So Ravashi, later on, he said, Mighty Boilach. What was the question? Bekoshi lo mishkachasle. Obviously, it cannot happen when the aver is erect. That's not possible. Right? Ki mishkachasle b'mishamish mace. The only way that it's possible is if he's not erect. Okay, so now, Laman Damar Mishamish Mace Ba'arayos Potter. What, according to them, we have an argument, we have a discussion. If somebody has an insertion and has relations when he's not erect, is that a prohibition that violates all of these other prohibitions? So, according to the opinion that says that's not a violation of any of these illegal relationships, there's an exemption, hacha potter, so he'd be potter in this case too, because he would do himself, right? Oman damar chayev, according to the opinion that said he would be chayev, so hacha mechayev tarti. So here, he's liable for two averos, right? Mechayev ashochev and mechayev anishkav.
It depends.
According to Rabbi Akiva, it's one. Correct. Yes. He's the shochev and the nishkav. Okay?
But it can't be. No, it doesn't work.
Okay.
No, wait.
Okay.
Kimle the Rabamine. How could he be? Oh, but
Korban chatos.
right,
He's bringing multiple korban
right.
chatos.
Right.
Oh, no,
Right.
actually, here's the
That is. I didn't expect this case.
Yep. Appropriate reaction. Yes. This Gemara is Bami name Rav Sheshis. Okay, now Rav Sheshis asked the following question. Now we're going to get into. We're going to transition from here into new topic. Not quite yet. What if a non-Jew has relations with a animal? Okay, what is the punishment? Mahu. So what is the what happens here? Takala v'kolon ba'inon. Do we need, in order for the animal to be destroyed, the animal has to get killed? Now we had in our Mishnah description, we explained why, because we've got two things. We have takala and kolon. Takala is the downfall of the person in the sense that he has committed an avera. And then we have kolon, which is a disgrace, in the sense that somebody's going to point to the animal and remember the avera based on the fact that they're going to see the animal around.
Would the animal have a baby in him?
No, they cannot have interspecies. You cannot do. They will not. That will not work with any two species, right? The only time you can have a pregnancy is within the same species, right? So you can have donkeys and horses can do that. But you can have. There was a case today I saw in the news that farmed in one, I don't remember, one Norwegian country, farmed salmon escaped the salmon farm and got into the wild, and they're all very nervous about it because they're salmon, so they can mate with the regular wild salmon species, which is a problem because they don't want to ruin the wild salmon species with this farmed species. So only within the same species, but you couldn't have like a cat and a dog couldn't mate and have a mixture. So okay, now the hacha. So takal v'kon ba'inon the hacha takala ika kolon leka. So as far as takala is concerned, takala, it's an avera for a non-Jew to have relations with an animal. We will see why, but that is an avera. But it is
Kilayim.
No, kilayim is a good answer. But it's because, but a disgrace? No. Why? The non-Jews are not that embarrassed about that stuff. Okay, it's not that embarrassing to the non-Jew. Okay, so Dilma, or is it takala afapisha in kolon? Or do we say, well, no, you have to destroy the animal because there is the downfall by itself causes you to destroy the animal, even if there isn't a disgrace. That's the question. Do you need both, or is one enough? So I'm Rav Sheshis. So Rav Sheshis says, Tanisua, we learned this already. Ma ilano she'in ochlin ve'in shosin ve'in marichin. What? If you've got a tree that a non-Jew bows down to the tree, right? So it becomes an asherah. So you have to destroy it, right? And a tree doesn't eat, doesn't drink, it doesn't smell. Amra Torah hashchis sarah v'chala. The Torah says you got to destroy it, burn it up, and eliminate it. Ho'u bo la'adam takala al yadan. So why? Because it caused takala. It caused the avera.
Right.
So therefore, a person worshipped it. So mataz chavera midarche chayim ledarche misa, because it tricked a person from going off the path from life to death. Also achas kama v'kama. So then this circumstance, right? So he says hamitai, a human being, right? This is somebody talk about somebody who entices his friend to commit idolatry. That he also gets destroyed. If a tree gets destroyed, for sure, a person who does it gets destroyed. So now, so therefore, what do you see? That even though there's no embarrassment, nobody's embarrassed or disgraced by the fact that there's a tree, but nevertheless, it brings a downfall. So you see the downfall by itself, the avera, the existence of the avera itself is enough to destroy the item that the avera was committed. Okay, elamayat, if that's true, so he says, well, that would mean that if a non-Jew commits avodah zarah, he bows down to his animal, so the animals should become usher, and it should get killed, right? Because there's an avera being done with the animal. So, but we don't do that. We know that by a Jew who worships an animal, the animal does not get killed. Why would it be that the non-Jew is stricter than a Jew? That the non-Jew would bow down to the animal and the animal would die? When a Jew bows down and the animal does not? That doesn't make sense.
Sounds fishy.
That sounds fishy, right? We're animally in this case. So Yisrael gufe litzer. So how do we know that the Jew himself, when the Jew bows down to the animal, that the animal isn't prohibited either? Why not? So midi dahava aravia, right? Because why should it be? Because it should be the exact same thing as if the human being has relations with the animal, right? If the human being could cause a disgrace or the downfall, the avera, so then you destroy the animal. Why shouldn't it be also that if the Jewish person bows down to the animal also gets destroyed? So Amar Abaye says, Zek kilona maruba v'zek kilona muat. So he says the difference is that the embarrassment, right, the degradation of worshiping the animal is way less than the degradation that applies to having relations with the animal, right? So the level of degradation is much less. So therefore, it makes sense that one might kill the animal that one has relations with, but not kill the animal that one considers. But by the way, the reason we know that this is the case is because the Torah tells us when it comes to korbanos that a korban that was worshipped as a avodah zarah is prohibited from being brought as a korban.
Right.
Now,
be a shiloh if that was
exactly.
It
Wouldn't even be a shiloh if it was prohibited by Hana anyway.
Could Yid make Asherah trees? Like if a Yid bows down to a tree, does he make an Asherah tree?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. We're going to see that later on, I think. But I'm going to leave it as I think so, but we'll put a thumbtack in it and see if I'm right later on. Vare ilonos, what about the trees? De'en kolonon meruba, right? There's not a lot of embarrassment to that either, right? Somebody worships the tree. V'amra Torah hishaches sarof v'kala. And the Torah tells us to destroy it, right? So if you're telling me the difference is that when it comes to an avera like having relations with the animal, that's when you kill the animal. But when it comes to a light thing like serving it, we don't, then why are you killing the tree when all it did was get worshipped? So the answer is, we're talking about a living animal. When it comes to an animal, we're not going to kill an animal unless the disgrace is a lot. But when it's a tree, even a little disgrace will destroy it because it's a tree, right? Cut down trees all the time. Animals have a little bit of feelings, right? And it leaves. That's correct. Right? Okay, Rava Amar. So that is what Rava says. Amr Torah behema nenes me'avera tehareg. Right? The Torah says that once an animal has been involved in, I guess, benefits from the avera, it should be destroyed. It should get killed. That's what he says the reason. It doesn't have to do with the amount of embarrassment or whatever it is, because we just said that this was based on the idea that the animal is going to get destroyed because there's an avera, regardless of whether there is disgrace or not. Okay, this Rava says once the animal has been involved in avera, then it gets killed. Vare ilonos de'ein nen in mavera. What about trees? Trees, he says the trees, it could be a question to him. They don't get any benefit from the being worshipped. The Torah says you got to destroy them. So the answer is, we're talking about animals. The Torah is making a distinction by the animal and saying that the animal has to have a benefit of the avera in order to destroy it. That's why only having relations with the animal, you destroy it, not worshiping it, right? But a tree is just a tree. And so therefore, even if it's just that the tree doesn't get any benefit, you're also going to destroy it. Okay. Toshma. So let's take a look back at our Mishnah. In our Mishnah we said, Davar Acher. So another explanation for why it is that we're going to kill this animal, right? Shalot tehe behema overes b'shuk. We don't want this animal to be walking through the marketplace. V'yomru, and people will say, Zuhi sheniskal ploni al yada. This is the animal that so-and-so was stoned because of it. So now, in that case, we are bringing the rationale for why we're killing the animal. And we're saying the rationale is two things, really, here. Number one, people will see the animal and they will recall the avera. And number two, they will recall the person. And so therefore, they will recall the avera, which is the downfall of the person, and it will be an embarrassment to the person. So you have both, what we say, the takala and the kolon, both the downfall and the embarrassment. So those two things happen together. Now, That was a davar acher. That was the other explanation. So, my lav mi de seifa takala v'kolon. If the end is explaining, and the end part of the Mishnah is talking about a case which has two reasons why we're going to kill the animal. So that means mi reisha, the beginning part of the Mishnah, which just says what was it? The case that was the reason the Mishnah said. 1 second, let's go back. The Mishnah says, right? Because the pasuk says lefisha ba la'adam takala al yada. Right? Just says because we're going to receive takala, a downfall because of that. And the pasuk, that's all the Mishnah says. Now, that means bereisha takala below kolon. The reisha must be talking about a case with only takala being the problem. People are going to mention the avera, and that's going to be the problem. Therefore, the second part of the Mishnah says, or another explanation is that you need both things: the downfall of the avera. You need the avera and plus the embarrassment. Okay. So now, the hechi dami. So what is the circumstance where you have takala, where you have a avera, but there's no embarrassment? So that's ovei kochavim, abala behema. That's the circumstance where you have a non-Jew having relations with the animal. And that answers our question. Our Mishnah answers our question. Mishnah tells us that all you have is takala without embarrassment. So then it's still, the animal gets destroyed. So therefore, a non-Jew has relations with the animal, you're going to kill the animal. So Gemara says, lo, nope, not so. Seifa takala v'kolon. The end is talking about both takala and kolon with both problems. Reisha, the beginning part is hakamash malon dafilu kolon below takala. Even though this is really difficult to read the words that way. That when we're talking about a disgrace without an avera, so nami michayevi, we're also going to destroy the animal, right? So. It's a tricky way to read this the Mishnah, because the Mishnah uses the word takala. But we're explaining the word takala is a downfall through, not avera, but through embarrassment. So, heichi dami, what is the circumstance? How do you have any circumstance going to kill the animal because of the embarrassment, even though there's no avera? So, Yisrael habal behema b'shogeg. We have a circumstance where the person has a relations with an animal bishogeg, right? Kedeboy Rav Hamnuna, because like Rav Hamnuna says, like he's going to ask in a moment, right? The avera is there, the embarrassment of it is not, because he didn't do it on purpose. He didn't do it with a warning. So therefore, the punishment is not there, but the avera exists. The downfall, as you say. Deboy Rav Hamnuna. As Rav Hamnuna asks, Yisrael haba behema b'shogeg. Sorry, I have backwards. The embarrassment is there. The avera that he's going to get punished, the misa is not there, right? Because he did it b'shogeg. Did it backwards. Deboy Rav Hamnuna, as Rav Hamnuna says, Yisrael haba al ha-behema. Let's say a Jewish person has relations with an animal, b'shogeg. Mahu, what would be the avera? What would be the punishment there? Takala v'kolon ba'inan. Are we requiring both things? The downfall of the avera plus the embarrassment. V'hacha kolon ika takala leka. Here all we have is kolon. All we have is the embarrassment, but we don't have the avera. O dilma kolon, or is it that you need kolon? Embarrassment is enough to destroy the animal. Afal pisha in takala, even though there is no actual downfall of avera, we're not going to kill the person. Amar Rav Yosef. So that was his question. So Amar Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef says, Tashma, come and listen. Bas sholosh shanim v'yom echad. Let's say you have a girl who's 3 years old and 1 day. So we said she is eligible that if somebody has relations, if she has relations, that relations counts as relations. So miskadeshes bebia. She can get married mida oraisa using bia. She cannot get married mida oraisa using kasef or shtar because she can't acquire ownership of anything. But she can be acquired in a de oraisa marriage through bia because her bia counts. Vimba aleha yavam. And let's say she has relations with her.
So she's a not even a nara.
She's a katana.
Right. If she's a katana, she can't acquire anything. She can't
Correct.
Make a king. Right. So therefore, right.
She's a full-fledged katana. Only through bia and through yibum. Also works through yibum, right? If she was the wife of one brother and she has relations with the other brother, now she can become his wife.
Right.
Okay. Kan'ah ve'im bala yavam kan'ah, he acquires her. V'chayavin Allah mishum eishes ish. Also, now since she's a doraisa married woman, if somebody else has relations with her and she's already married, then that's a prohibition of eishes ish. Obviously, she doesn't get punished because she's too young, but the man does. Umetam'a es boa lo l'tami mishkav tachton ke'elyon. This one's a little bit tricky. Anytime a girl bleeds, even if she's not 11 or 12 yet, we can consider it nida blood. Regardless. So therefore, she can be considered a nida at an early age. She can have tumas nida at an early age. So now, the halacha by a nida is that when she is tameh, anything that she sits on becomes tameh. Not only things that she touches, but anything that supports her weight. So let's say, for example, you've got a 3 mattresses on top of each other, right? And she sits on the top one. All of them are tameh. Okay, so the tuma travels down. That's the way it works by a nida. Now, a man who has relations with a nida becomes tameh also. He is tameh in the same way she's tameh, in that she's tameh for 7 days. He becomes tameh for 7 days also. But the difference is that he can only transmit tuma when he sits on the mattresses. When she sits on the mattresses, all of the mattresses become an avatuma.
Right.
When he sits on the mattresses, all of them become tameh, but only as a rishon l'tuma.
Oh.
They only become a rishon l'tuma. So the phrase is, right, she's metama as bo'ala, when if she becomes a nida, since she can have relations, so if a man has relations with her, he becomes tameh from her, right? L'tameh mishkav tachton ke'elyon, so that if he sits on something, the item that's on the bottom becomes tameh, like the upper garments of a zav, a rishon l'tuma. A zav is an avatuma. Somebody who has a zav is an avatuma, and only the clothes that he wears becomes tameh as a rishon.
Right?
Yes. So therefore, what we're saying is the mishkav tachton, anything that he sits on, becomes a rishon l'tuma.
And for her, it becomes
an avatuma.
She could make an avatuma. That's interesting.
Yes.
Wow.
We don't really pay attention to these things nowadays because everybody's all tameh and we don't care. But the different degrees of tuma are important.
So that's why they would keep. Oh, right. That makes sense. That's why the woman comes to the man's bed, because her bed is tameh.
But that wouldn't even be so relevant. Let's say the bed was tameh, right?
It's
so
an avatuma.
The avatuma could touch something else. Could make it a rishon. Could make a.
She goes into man's bed. Doesn't it make the man's bed tameh as well?
No.
Anything that she sits on, right? But he's saying when she's not a nida.
Right,
Okay, now, Nises LeKohen, if she gets married to a Kohen, again, since it's a Deoraisa, we're bringing all these different cases, it's a Deoraisa marriage. So if she marries a Kohen, Ochelas B'Truma, she can eat Truma. Ba'alel Echad Mina Psulim, if she has relations with somebody who is a person that she's not allowed to marry, a mamzer, for example, so Pasla Min HaKuna, she becomes prohibited from ever marrying a Kohen.
Right.
And she can never eat Truma again. V'im ba'alel Echad Mikol HaArayos Hamurus B'Torah, and if any of the arayos, any of the prohibited relations have relations with her, munasin al yada, they get killed because of her. She doesn't get killed because she's not an adult, but they get killed because they did the aveira, and it counts. Vehi patura, but she's exempt. So, echad mikol. Now the Gemara says,
Depends, though, isn't it? If it was Rav Shmuel or like somebody.
No.
That
as far as an onesh is concerned, she doesn't get punished. The question there was whether the boy who's the nishkav,
right,
whether that's considered bia on the shochev to punish the shochev, right? This is a woman. As a woman, for sure, it's when she's 3.
Oh, okay. Right.
Okay, so now, so now we said, echad mikol arayos. We said any of the arayos die by having relations with her. Now, vafilu behema, which would imply even an animal, right, is going to die. But wait a second, we've got this exact case. There's a degradation, right? It's a bad situation, but there's no aveira because she doesn't get punished for it. So the same case as the shogeg. So the Katani, and it says, and it answers the question, that we're going to kill the animal because it had relations with her. So the answer is no. Kevan de mizida hi takala nami ika. The answer is no. Even though she doesn't get punished, if she acted bemazid, so there is an aveira. It's just an aveira that's not punishable. There's a difference between somebody who's shogeg, in which the aveira didn't occur, or a girl who's underage who does it bemazid. The distinction: girl is underage, doesn't bemazed. V'rachmanahu dechas Allah. The Torah is Hashem is having mercy on her. She's too young to get punished, right? That's all. She's too young to get punished. But the avera happens.
Right.
So Allah didochas abehema lochas. So therefore, if the avera happened, so that's why the Torah doesn't punish her. But why you still have to punish the animal because the avera happened. It's not the same thing as the case by the shogeg, right? By the shogeg, we don't know because with the avera didn't happen. We only have the kolon, we have the disgrace, but we don't have the takala. But here we have both the takala and the kolon. We have both the disgrace and the avera. Only she gets off, but the animal doesn't. That's why the animal gets killed. Okay, Amar Rava. So Rava says, Toshma, come listen. Ben Tesha Shana v'yom echad habal v'yavamto. A 9-year-old. Now we're going to go the other way for a boy. 9-year-old who has relations with his yavam. Right? So that means that he's the brother, right? His brother died, and now he has relations with his wife, now kan'ah. She's now mida oraisa married to him, despite the fact that he's 10 years old. Okay? Ve'eno no saying get, but he cannot give a get ad sheyagdil until he gets older, right? Because you need to be able to be 13. You have to be old enough to be able to give a get. He can't give the get, but he can get married, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Wow. Umetame kenidol l'tame mishkav tachton kelyon. So also, if he has relations with a woman who's a nida, so then he can be metame everything that he sits on as a rishon l'tuma.
Right.
Posel ve'eno machil. He can if he marries a girl who could eat truma, bas kohen who can eat truma, he can invalidate her from eating truma, but he cannot help her to eat truma. Uposa as a behema, and sorry.
What does that mean? Wait, he can't help her to eat truma,
meaning he is not.
This shows how close we are. We are very, very close to the
he can't, since he can't make a kinyan, right? So he can't acquire, even though he's married to this woman,
right?
He can't acquire her as kinyan kaspo, his property. And so therefore, since he cannot acquire her to that level, that's the level of which the Torah requires a Kohen to be attached to his wife to eat truma.
Right, okay.
So he's not eligible for a kinyan kaspo, so he cannot, as a Kohen, marry somebody and have his wife now eat truma.
Right, until she's of age.
Right, until he is.
So
he is of age, right? And he can, if he has relations with an animal, he can ruin the animal from being able to be used as a korban on the mizbeach because his bia is valid. V'niskelas al yada, and the animal is destroyed, is killed by that action. And if he has relations with any of the arayos in the Torah, so they get killed because of him. Now, here's again, we've got the disgrace no avera. But Katani Niskelas al Yado, and we see that the animal gets skila because he had relations with it. So the answer is, we say the same answer. Keva demezidhu takala nami ikka. He did it bemezid. He did it on purpose. So therefore the avera exists. V'rachmanahu dechas ilave. The Torah is the one that exempts him from punishment. Ale didechas rachmana. So it's on him that the Torah says there's no punishment. Abehema lochas rachmana. But since the avera exists, the disgrace exists, the Torah never let the animal off the hook. So the animal gets killed. Toshma. Okay, so come and listen. Davar acher, another explanation in our Mishnah again. Shalot tehei behem. This is now going on we're going to quote this again, but this time we're trying to prove the opposite, that kolon, that the disgrace is enough to kill the animal, even though there's no avera, right? Davar acher, shalot tehei behema overes b'shok v'yomru zuhi sheniskal ploni al yodah. We shouldn't have the animal going through the marketplace and we'll say, this is the animal that so-and-so got stoned because of it. My love, me the seifa takala v'kolon reisha kolon below takala. Can't we say, like we had originally said last time we had brought this Mishnah, that this part is requiring both the avera plus the embarrassment, and in the original part it was talking about a circumstance where you only have embarrassment without the avera. Ve'echi dami, what case would that be? Yisrael haba ala behema b'shogeg, the case that we had been asking about. What about a Jew who has relations with the animal b'shogeg? The answer is low. No, we can't prove it from there because Seifa Takola V'kolon, Reisha Takola Below kolon. It could be that you could explain the beginning as a circumstance where that you have only the downfall where the Aver exists, but not the embarrassment.
Right.
And like, for example, it could be talking about the non-Jew who has relations with the animal, where the Avera exists, but the disgrace is not. Okay, the Bomi name Rav Sheshes, like Rav Sheshes asked on the previous Amud. And so therefore, there's two ways of interpreting this Mishnah, so we cannot deduce it one way versus the other to answer either of those shilas. Okay, place to stop.
Wow.